2 seconds.
Is one.
You're live.
Thank you. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. It's about 6:30 PM. This is the Auburn Finance Committee. I'm going to start by reading the remote participation script. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, it is 1-786-535-3211 with an access code of 991-599-357, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. I'll go over who's present. I don't believe we have anyone appearing remotely at this time. Michael Marshall.
Present.
Patrick Jones. Present. George Graham.
Present.
Stephen Casilvio.
Present.
Town officials and employees participating. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Ed Kazanovich.
Present.
CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Present.
And Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski.
Present.
Okay, we will not need to do roll call votes because we have everybody present here with us. Today's agenda, we're going to first, we've done our call to order, first go over the warrant review vote and recommendation on the warrant article. We'll move on to some transfer requests, minutes, and then adjourn. So we can start off with the warrant article, discussion on the warrant article. Mr. Kazanovich, did you have some?
Sure. So I provided each member with a one-page handout. I just wanted to go over some of the costs associated with Article 2. It is just a one-article warrant that's going to town meeting scheduled January 30th at 6 p.m. We're proposing to fund, there is no sum of money right now because we're still trying to get a handle on some of the other costs other than the acquisition cost that would be appropriated as a one-time request out of free cash. So if we look at option A, the costs associated with Article 2 is going to be the acquisition cost. We currently have a letter of intent with a pending purchase of sale agreement, subject to town meeting approval of $4,050,000 acquisition price. In addition to that, we have demolition costs, which may range anywhere from a low of $175,000 to $275,000. And currently, we engaged Ty and Bond to do a pre-demo analysis. They're going to be on site Friday to do some testing to see if there are any contaminants within the building that would help determine the cost of the demolition. So that, that may range from roofing material to siding to any adhesive that may be under the floors, any mastic, windows, things of that nature will be tested. We're hoping to get an analysis of that testing before town meeting that would allow us to put a value to that. We would have to do an environmental assessment of Phase 1. I can tell you that the current owner did an assessment in 2013 that showed no contaminants. And we know the use hasn't changed since then, so we don't believe that any additional findings will result of that assessment. Although we need to do an assessment if we are going to construct a facility, if this should get approved, because that would require us to borrow funds, and the lending institution would require an updated Phase 1. We would need title insurance according to town council as a result of the sale. So our total cost, using an estimate of $200,000 for demolition costs, would be just shy of 4.3. That number, we believe, is gonna move more south than north, but we won't know until we get that analysis done by Ty and Bond. The good news is, if we were to fund this through bond proceeds, let me just go through the cost here. So this, it would be the same acquisition cost. We would borrow that for a period of 10 years. At a current interest rate of 5.50%, the town would pay just over $1 million in interest costs over that 10-year period. So by appropriating this request through free cash, we would save roughly $1,004,000. That interest cost was quoted a couple of weeks ago based upon our rating from our financial advisor. In addition to that, I think the chief had spelled out and indicated to various boards and committees that he got a quote for relocation expenses. If the facility were built on West Street, we would have to put operations on the site in a different location. And that cost recently incurred by the city of Cambridge for a station was $4 million. That money would have to be borrowed as well. That would also cost us an additional $1 million of interest over the 10-year period. The demolition cost, if borrowed, would cost the same, roughly $200,000. That's an estimate. This is an estimate on the interest, about $50,000. Environmental assessment, the same. Tie and bond, the same. Title insurance, the same. So the total cost for the same items that we are suggesting that, or recommending that we appropriate from free cash would be almost $10,337,000. Total taxpayer savings of $6,054,000. I also want to reiterate that we know, as a result of our joint meeting, there were costs associated with the relocation of school admin as well, which has not been included in this scenario. So we know, as a result of purchasing the property from free cash, at that site, there'll be no relocation expenses for schools. They'll be allowed to stay at West Street. So that's savings as well. So we would be requesting somewhere in the vicinity of 4.2 to 4.5 million. That would be our request, subject to that study. So just to give you a ballpark, when you take a position on the warrant article, it's going to be somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5 million.
Thank you. Questions?
So my only question is, on option B, just because I expect that this question will come up at town meeting, is this really a $6 million savings, or is it about $1 million? Because aren't these an either-or situation? We either acquire the property with bond proceeds and then build on on Washington Street, or we would build at West Street, in which case we would have to do relocation. It doesn't strike me that we would pay for $4 million, like if we did it as a bond, we wouldn't pay $4 million for the property and relocate the fire department in the meantime.
No.
We would do an either or. So
So-
I feel like for the purposes of making this very clear at town meeting, I would not categorize this as a $6 million savings. I would categorize it as somewhere between 1 and, maybe 1.25, because as written, I think this is overstating the savings to the taxpayers. Because we would either be doing the acquisition through bond proceeds or the relocation through bond proceeds, but not both.
So I think you're going to realize roughly the same cost. So I guess we're trying to identify, if Article 2 does not pass, we revert back to what's in place now.
Yeah.
And we continue our path in constructing a facility on West Street. As a result of that, we would incur $4 million of relocation expenses, because during construction,
But we wouldn't incur the $4 million in acquisition costs. I'm assuming.
that is correct.
Yeah, so that's the only point I want to make is, I think we're overstating by about 5 million the savings to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Either way, we're going to spend $4 million. And if we don't take this out of free cash, there's going to be $1 million in interest. But it's an either or on those first two
Well, I
options.
guess we can refine this in that. I think there was some discussion, and I think the chair was part of the discussion. There was a consideration to purchase an abutting piece of property to expand the site, formerly known as Perros, now known as Lux. That would not be required. It would actually cost more than the $1 million, because I think the acquisition price would be well over $1,004,000. So I think we can present it in that fashion.
Yeah, I just know that if you present this as, option one is buying the property out of free cash, and option two is buying it with bond proceeds, or moving forward with the property as.
You raise a good
Yeah,
point, so.
we're not going to be spending one of those $5 million line items is not going to be spent. We may spend a different line item, but I just.
So
feel like-
if you subtract out that $1.4 million, if you remove that acquisition, then I think that truly reflects not a $6 million difference, but a $5 million difference.
Are we locked into the property on Washington Street regardless of whether Article 2 passes?
No.
So we also wouldn't incur the $4 million to buy West Street.
No, but
Excuse me, to buy
But
Washington.
I'm saying if you remove the $4 million from option B, if that,
Yes.
and option A goes away.
Yep.
We're still dealing with these additional costs. We know that we have the relocation expenses of $4 million.
Yep.
We have the school relocation expenses, which are not captured here.
Yep.
Which will be well over $1 million. The demolition costs would,
Ed, I agree with you 100%. I just want to make sure that we don't tell people
All right,
it's a $5 million, because it's not, it's a $1 million, like, it's $1 million based on what's here. If we add line items, we can add it up more, but I know this is going to be something people are going to harp on at town meeting, because this is the kind of stuff that always results in lunacy, and like.
no, I'm glad we're
yeah.
having this discussion now, because the last thing we want to do is create any confusion.
Yeah,
on that topic.
it's, we're either buying Washington out of free cash.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
we're going with bond proceeds, which is going to be relocation
Okay.
costs.
So I just wanted
Yeah.
you taking a position tonight, recognizing some of the costs that we would have to incur if option A.
I'm on board, and I am super supportive of this project. I just don't want to overstate the savings, because I feel like we've had this issue with town meeting before, where we've sometimes not had the clearest indication of what the savings to the taxpayers are, and people harp on, well, it's only $1 million, not $6 million, and it's still $1 million in savings, to be clear. We're still saving the taxpayers a lot of money, but I don't want to turn this into.
Without getting specific to the actual details, we verbally convey to town meeting members, if you go with option A versus option B, here are some of the additional costs.
100%. That sounds great, yeah.
You also have an asset that you don't have, so it's a little bit apples and oranges.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I just,
Point well taken. I'm glad you raised it. Thank you.
And that was going to be my exact question as well. I think we've blended, that option B's blended a couple things in that, I think it's the financing options is what we should focus on. So it's either free cash.
Yeah.
Or if we go for 10 years, this is the additional cost it's going to cost the taxpayers, and stick with that. And because I think the only thing that could potentially be motioned to change at this town meeting relative to this warrant article would be, no, we don't want to take $4 million out of free cash. We would prefer to change that to a 10-year financing option, which you would have indicated would have cost an additional $1.1 million of the taxpayer monies, and that would be their choice. I don't see them going that direction, but I think this is, like Michael said.
I think we limit it to that with some additional, either 4 million out of free cash. If not, then if we were to consider option A through bond proceeds, it would cost an additional $1 million.
And should the chief want to make a presentation talking about should this
We can-
article not
we
go
can-
through, there are additional costs.
I think the chief-
He's raring a.
It's late, I'm not raring.
Chief?
Thank you. To Mr. Marshall's point, it's a good point. Maybe another way, I think, to look at this that may clarify it a little easier is that if town meeting votes not to support the purchase of the land and we're forced to revisit West Street, we're trying really, really hard to sharpen the pencil on the total project cost. So if the $4 million allocation of the land is not purchased, that's only going to grow the construction costs that we're going to have to borrow on the project, because the relocation costs, not only from the fire station, but it depends on whether or not we want to try to include the school allocate. All that does is drive the total project construction cost up at a time where we're trying to drive the construction cost down. So I think maybe that's sort of the way to explain it, is to say, if the land is not purchased,
We're spending $4 million no
spending-
matter what.
Right, we're spending $4 million.
We can either buy a piece of property and save ourselves money.
Exactly.
Or we can spend more than $4 million
Yeah.
and not have a piece of property,
It-
which is to Steve's point.
Exactly, it's
Isn't
just
that-
going to needlessly
yeah.
drive the construction cost up, so I think that's a way to look at it.
Great.
Just to add to everyone's point and to Steve's comment about having an asset, something you might want to think about when you present to town meeting is we do have an opportunity cost here. So just to give you some verbiage to use in thinking this through, the opportunity of what we have versus the opportunities we don't have might help shed some clarification. Because
Opportunity
having...
meaning lands don't become available, or we don't have a lot.
Well, they're just the opportunity cost of the assets that we have has an intangible effect. It's hard to take some of that stuff and put it down. But we're not just, and I mention this because when you deal with borrowing and you present it like this, to some extent, I agree with what the point you're making, but it can be difficult because in a way that 4 million is a part of the savings, because it's an opportunity to Stephen's point, because the asset does exist. So you're sort of recognizing value that you already have. How you're funding it is irrelevant. Where I would say there's an opportunity cost or a challenge is if you do remove the money, now you don't have that money there for a future project. You have to rebuild it, which brings you back to his point. So it's just trying to be as versatile in describing what we're up against so that more people understand it and less people ask questions. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Because you mentioned Lux Auto. Is that available? What were you trying to say there? Because I didn't quite capture what
So
you meant.
there was some interest, I think at a time when Lux was negotiating a lease with Perros. They were contemplating a potential sale. One of the principal owners has passed on, and there may be a forced sale as a result of that. We don't know. But it may present an opportunity in the future for the town to consider purchasing that parcel. I know that was a consideration when we originally looked at the site, because the site was somewhat tight, and we were trying to expand it any way we could. That was an option that was considered.
If we had both sites, would that be big enough for a public safety building as opposed to just a fire station? Theoretically.
It made it more suitable. I think the site that we're looking at now is more desirable for a number of reasons. Because I think there's some wetlands issues down there that kind of limit our layout, so to speak, of a joint public safety facility. So right now, we're looking at fire headquarters only because the price tag on a joint public safety facility is so huge that we don't believe, or the three committees didn't believe there was an appetite to continue looking at that. Fair to say, Kev?
That's fair, very fair. George?
I just wanted to ask, from Mike's point about why it wouldn't be a $6 million savings, I just want to, I'm not really understanding. I see the $4 million you'd save for the relocation and the $2 million in interest, so I just wanted to try and be on the same page as Mike on that.
I think from what I look at it is, they're both two financing options, whether you decided to go with, Bank A or Bank B, or, a 20-year loan or a 30-year loan, or whichever different type of loan you're looking for. And I think that relocation cost just clouds that a little bit. It almost needs to be a separate.
Option C.
Option C, should both options not be chosen, or this article not be chosen, then we're looking at, these additional costs to continue to look at that West Street location for a fire facility, an improved fire facility. So I think that's just, when I looked at it, it confused it a little bit, but it certainly could be explained, but
You know, after having this discussion, I think it makes all the sense in the world to try to clear the smog out of the air. Let's focus on option A, because that's what we're recommending here. If town meeting should have any questions relative to another option, the location, we can identify all these additional costs as a result of going that route. However they try to tailor it, I think we have to be prepared to answer those questions.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I was on the same page.
any other questions? Okay. Read the article and... So as far as the entire article here, we, for those that are new, and I have to look this every time, so as a Finance Committee, we take, our options are to recommend for approval, not recommend for approval, defer to the petitioner, or to take no position. So Article 1 is just the standard language. We don't need to discuss that one, so we'll just read Article 2. Article 2 is to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate a sum of money from free cash for the acquisition of a 2.89 acre parcel of land currently owned by BKRJT Incorporated. Property owner operates Chuck's Steakhouse with a principal place of business at 798 Washington Street and 10 Prospect Street, Auburn, Massachusetts, and payment of costs for demolition of the existing building on the property. All necessary engineering, survey, title, and title insurance expenses, all customary closing costs generally related to the purchase of commercial property of similar nature, and any and all other miscellaneous costs associated with the acquisition of the property, as deemed necessary and appropriate by the town manager, or act on anything relative thereto. It's filed by the town manager and the fire chief.
My only other question, and I apologize for not asking sooner, is is the plan to amend the article at town meeting to have a specific number? Or is the plan to just say a sum of money?
No, it will be specific.
So the number that will get filled in there will be somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5.
Yes. We know some costs are fixed now, but there are others that we'll have a better handle on as we get closer to town meeting.
I move that the Finance Committee recommend Article 2 for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We can do all in favor?
Aye.
That's all we have relative to article, the warrant article.
It's my swan song, so enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye, Karen.
Okay, we've got some transfers to cover. Patrick, you've kind of looked to see if there's any place we can
Well,
consolidate?
actually,
to-
right off the bat, on the first one, I move that we take the first three as one vote for the
Second.
libraries on top.
Okay, motion second to take those three as one. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, this interdepartment transfer. It is the library that's asking for this transfer. All of these are coming from the Children's Resource Administrator account. The first one, the amount requested is $3,763, going to the Director's account to cover 1% increase. The next one, $2,094, going to the Technology Administrator to cover a 1% increase. And the next one, also $2,094, going to the Patron Services Administrator to cover 1% increases. Any questions for the librarian? No? Any motions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, also from the library account, coming from the Associates account, the amount requested $10,000. This is going to programs, and the reason given, due to increased program expenses and new initiatives. Jean, do you want to go over what this one entails?
Sure. Our programs continue to be filled very quickly. A lot of times, we actually offer 2 and sometimes even 3 sessions to accommodate everybody. So since July 1st, we've hosted 122 programs with about 3,500 patrons attending those programs. We'd like to do more. One of the interesting things we've kind of run into is we used to be able to hold more of them in the children's room, but now the children's room is so busy all the time that now we hold them in, so then we have to schedule them into the Merriam Room. We've also got some new initiatives. One of them we tried last summer was our library camp For our children 8 to 12, it filled right away and stayed filled for all the sessions, and I've already had requests to do that again. So all these, obviously, cost more money. Another exciting thing that I think we're doing is we're partnering with Clark University with their School of Design and Technology, and we're going to kind of expand. It's under a program for the teen section to do virtual reality. So they're actually going to partner with us to help us decide what to purchase and to help set it up. And I know the people there, so they're actually going to assign an intern to us. And so that obviously, it's part of a program, so that costs money as well. So we're halfway through the year. Our program budget is pretty much expended. So as I usually seem to do every year, is I come back about this time and request more program money. It's very important that we do programs. That's really what draws people into libraries these days. So, and that's really we love to do in the programs anyway. So.
And just that associates account, what is?
That's library associates is the union positions. Not all of them are filled, so that would come from that.
Do you see yourself, as you come to us for the next year's, any adjustments, knowing that programs have increased?
Yes, well, I just submitted my budget the other day and actually doubled that amount. We'll see if that is approved or not. Sometimes I can take the money from state aid. I did just get my state aid award. We're in full compliance, and we had over $40,000 in state aid. But I'm trying to sort of hold on to some of that for the expansion and use it in there as if possible as well, so. Yeah. We have a meeting tomorrow, Joanna and I and the architect, and we'll see how it.
Some good news to come here, present your budget. Okay, any questions? Any motion?
Motion approved?
Motion and a second, all in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next one coming from,
Yep, I move that we take all four as one.
Second.
motion and a second, take all four of these from the Patrol Quinn account as one. All in favor? Okay. For the police department, like I said, coming from the Patrol Quinn account, first one is $560.72, going to the chief's salary, reason given to clear a deficit in the line. Next one, $468.71, going to the deputy chief's salary, also to clear a deficit in that line. Next one, $140.44, going to the chief Quinn bill line, that is to clear a deficit. And the last one, $117.44, going to the deputy chief Quinn bill line, and also to clear a deficit. Any questions?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, next one is the, coming from DDIS, Animal Control. This is coming from the vaccinations account. Amount requested, $850, going to the ACO veterinary expenses. The reason given to cover vet costs for a Tufts invoice.
Motion approved?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
So the first two here are, I'll move when we get to the third one, but the last three appear to all be the same.
Okay, so the fire department is next. First one, coming from the training account. The amount requested, $27,000, going to the overtime account. Reason given, expected overtime expenses. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to the committee. It has been a rough start to the fiscal year within the first 6 months. We have a pretty decent-sized shortfall in the overtime account. Since July 1 to January 1st, the first 6 months of the year, I've had a total of 9 employees that have been out, 7 of them for either injured on duty related, injured off duty related, paternity, and then 2 were in mandatory recruit training. So a total of 9 employees in all, but 7 of them were medical related. Those overtime expenses in the first 6 months spent 2/3 of the overtime budget. On top of those 9 employees, in the first 6 months of the fiscal year, I had 5 resignations within the department, 4 resignations and 1 retirement. So those 5 vacant positions, coupled with the other issues, we're about 95% spent on the overtime. So the transfers, I have implicated a spending freeze within the department on all non-discretionary items. The money from the training account, this was training that was going to be used in the second half of the year that I've already canceled, so I'm sweeping the entire training account to overtime, so I've canceled those trainings already. The educational stipend, the educational stipends have been paid. This is $2,000 that is just a balance for one of those employees who left shortly after July. So that's available funds, but all those other stipends have come out. So the total transfer before you tonight for overtime is $32,286. That's what will be in the account. I'm sorry, that's what the overtime account will be with this $29,000 transfer between the training and the educational stipend. We have just shy of $5,000 in the account now. So that will bring the overtime account to $32,286. That is a very short-term stopgap for the next couple of weeks. Myself and the deputy are meeting with the CFO and the town manager tomorrow morning. We do have another sum of money within the firefighter salary account from those vacant positions that we're going to be able to transfer into overtime, but it was premature to transfer that tonight because literally today, the accountant's office just finished, what's the word I'm looking for, Karen? Balanced the account or re-encumbered the funds from July 1st. So we now have a handle on what the encumbrance is and what's available. So probably in a couple of weeks, possibly right before the town meeting on January 30th, the town manager may ask you to take a look at a transfer that night. So we do have some available funds within the firefighter salary line, but tomorrow we're meeting to come up with a long-term strategy on how we're going to get to June 30th. You know, I've been the chief for 13 years, and this is only the second time that I've kind of had this, perfect storm of employee issues, within the first 6 months of a fiscal year that have kind of put us into this spot. But I reviewed all the numbers with the CFO this morning, and that's about where we are. So I will have some future requests, but like I said, we're meeting tomorrow to come up with the long-term plan.
It's a question for Karen, actually. As a non-employment or accounting expert, when we have people who are out either injured or resignation, are we still paying them out of salary, or is that coming from somewhere else in those instances? Because I would, to sort of go off of what he's saying, it sounds like we should have a surplus in salary, and obviously future transfers coming out of there makes sense, but I'm just curious how that works. Like, if someone's out on leave, paternity leave, out injured, or whatever else, are we still losing money out of the salary account?
Well, the other aspect that we were talking about this morning, too, was the insurance that covers the IOD. And we were talking about some of the changes that were made in the insurance coverage, whereas before we had, I think we were paid up to like $2,000 per employee, and then we lowered the coverage to like $1,000, and it starts after 60 days instead of immediately. So the savings or the reimbursements that we're getting aren't as high as they used to be, because we're trying to also, weigh the risks of lowering the coverage versus who we have out there. So if we do get anything back, then it does go back into the salary, and then we do have the savings from there. So what we were doing is we were tweaking the encumbrances and projecting out what the salaries would be through the end of the fiscal year. And that's how we're coming up with having some additional monies available.
Other questions for the chief, or?
I have a question, I'm just not sure I'm going to ask it correctly, so if you can't answer it, I'll understand. It would appear to me that you have to have a certain amount of fixed coverage. So if you have to have 7 on duty or 9 on duty at any given shift, and you have to adhere to that, I would think that you'd have to pay for overtime. But I'm just curious, if you have that many people that are not on their that are not able to make their shifts because they're injured on duty, or because you have a vacancy, is it appropriate, rather than have them on duty, have them on a different, I don't want to say on call because that sounds so computer, like you're home and the computer breaks down so you can just do your own job. But I'm just wondering if there is a grade or a level of accessibility that comes with some of these people that doesn't merit them. The overtime is expensive. At a minimum, it's at least full salary, if not time and a half and more. So if we're just utilizing those funds to fill a body because the law says we have to have someone there, why does it have to be overtime? So I guess I'm trying to look, like we said, long-term, or I'm just trying to think, to me, it sounds like we have people in an overtime slot because we're required to have a certain amount of people on duty. But yet, why are we paying them overtime at that rate if they're just being in the firehouse to replace somebody who is out injured? Like, I would think there'd be a status change there, because it just is expensive. And I think what I liked hearing about this, I'm in support of this, and I understand what you're up against, so I'm going to make a motion, or I'll agree to a motion or vote for a motion to approve the transfer. What I'm thinking of is the impact to the taxpayer when you have your men in the line of duty to work and they're being compensated for that. And then when somebody becomes injured on duty and another person has to step up, that they're just getting such an incredible amount more money to step up when they may not be expected to leave their bed that night. And again, it's a really delicate thing for me to say, because I'm not trying to be negative, but if you had a regular budget and you didn't have overtime and you didn't have to come to us for this, you would be, if you had your 7 that were out injured and they were in, it wouldn't be this expensive. So I'm just trying to think of how the taxpayer is paying for all of this overtime for people that are injured on duty. And I would think that, and as one of my peers brought up, we have insurance, and do we have a line item that we can go for that helps absorb that, or just entertain the thought going forward for a long-term solution? It seems that we're doing overtime to replace people that are not able to work regular time. So I was maybe wondering if you could shed some light on that. It's a really difficult question to ask.
Yeah, I guess it's not that difficult. I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can, right? The department staffs on a daily basis 2 paramedic level ambulances and 2 fire engines. So we have a minimum staffing in order to make that happen. So if a member is injured and they're not able to come to work, that means someone is not sitting in that second seat of the ambulance. Right. So we have to bring someone in on overtime to do that. So I'll be honest with you, I was having a hard time following what you were saying in the beginning, because
that's where I'm coming from. It's like you have a line item that says that we have a salary that we're going to pay that individual who now is not there, but we're going to bring someone in to replace them, and we're going to have to pay them overtime, and they deserve overtime because they're working overtime to help. But at the same time, we're coming to the Finance Committee and to an out-of-line budget request for money when we've got money that's sitting there that's, to Mike's point, that's just sitting on a line item for payroll that isn't being used.
So it's not sitting in the line item not being used. So firefighters and police officers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts fall under what's called Chapter 111F
Right, I'm familiar with
for injured on duty. So when a firefighter is out on an injured on duty, he or she still receives their regular compensation. That money is coming from the firefighter salary line. So,
Next question.
so
That was my
they're,
question.
so
Thank you
they're
for clarifying.
getting,
And I knew that, they just,
yeah, so they're getting their regular compensation.
right.
Now, where this has become problematic over the years, and the CFO sort of mentioned it, is in 2019, we were with a different insurance company. And that insurance company, the way that the plan was designed was if a member got injured, we were covered on day one of that injury. There was no wait period, and we received reimbursement up to 70% of the firefighter's salary, and that money would go into the overtime account. In fiscal '21, we changed insurance plans, and, I don't want to say, we did it for a cheaper rate, but for financial reasons, we switched the insurance plan. But the plan that we have today went from a immediate coverage to the member now has to be out injured on duty for 60 days. There's a 60-day grace period. I'll be honest, the majority of the IODs that we get do not go beyond 60 days. So we're essentially now receiving no reimbursement. And again, the old plan was reimbursing 70%, the new plan's reimbursing 60%, but it's also capped at $1,000. So in 2019, if I had a member that was out, I was getting 70% of their total salary, their total weekly salary. Today, I'm receiving 60% of $1,000. So I'm essentially receiving $600 is my cap. And of all of those IOD claims that we had, there's only two. One of them is since back to work, but he was out longer than 60 days. And I have one now that's heading into surgery, and he won't be back until July. So he'll be beyond 60 days. But the other 4 IODs, they never went beyond 60 days. But they were still 4 or 5 weeks, injuries before they came back. So it's not, and again, I completely understand. And please, I do not take what you said. I understand.
You looked within your budget and have found out, like, you put your training on hold. You're looking for other ways to help yourself. So I'm very grateful for all of what you're doing. I'm just trying to understand, and your point is well made. I think one of the things that I'm getting out of what you're saying is that it's important for everyone to realize that when someone at the fire department is injured, it becomes an expense to the municipality, because they're not only having to receive their payroll, but then there's additional costs associated with that for contractual reasons.
Correct.
So every time we have an injured on duty, we have to be ready to deal with that in multiple ways.
Yeah.
There's no break even.
Correct. And and again, I can't sit here and say that the insurance is the drive. The insurance is one piece. But I can tell you, and again, we will be talking about this morning, but I think the town manager is already seeing this, and we're probably going to have some recommendations for the plan coming into July 1. I get at the end of the day that this was a cost savings over the last fiscal year, but when we run the cost benefit of what we just saved, we're going to spend more money in overtime where I could have received
Right, so
the
there was
insurance.
a decision associated with the shift with the insurance company, and you did a good job, for me anyway. I completely understand the 60-day, and I get, we probably saved money on premiums because we extended our exposure. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But I think that, like you said, the cost-benefit analysis now is maybe we didn't think of this hypothetical, and maybe we need to revisit that because it is costing the taxpayers more money.
Yeah, I think just to go back, the operation of the department is a numbers game. I have X amount of seats that need to be filled every day in
That's
order.
where I think I confused you,
Yeah.
because I was trying to understand that.
Yeah, and again, right, it's not like if somebody calls in sick today that is in the office or something like that, we don't have to backfill, we don't have to bring somebody in today, someone else will answer the phone today, whatever. That's sort of not the luxury that we have. I have a certain amount of seats that need to be filled. And if someone can't come in, I have to hire someone in on overtime to fill that seat. Otherwise, that truck does not go out on the call.
You're not using that overtime unless you have to fill that minimum requirement.
That's correct. Providing everybody's in, we have a two-person buffer, so two people can be off, whether it's vacation or whatever, where we don't
But
fill
if you go
overtime.
to 3 people, now you're down 1 below what you're.
Correct. So
expected
we
to
can
have.
allow two people off at a time where we don't incur overtime. But if for some reason, we did dip below that, overtime is only used on the shift side. There's other overtime, there's training and things like that. But as far as the shift overtime goes, right now, we have a group of 10. If one person takes a day off, we're not filling to 10. We have that buffer. The problem is, and when you're looking at the 9 employees on the top side, like medical and Recruit Academy, and then the 5 that left, all of those vacancies didn't occur, they overlapped. But at any given time during that, 6-month period, we were down 6 or 7 people. So, that's essentially, that's 2 people per group. So that's the 2 people that you could allow off. So for essentially the first 6 months of the year, for the most part, anytime somebody requested a day off, we didn't have that buffer anymore. So the overtime needs to be filled.
And the overtime is at the qualifications and the skill set of the person coming in, not the person they're replacing.
Yeah, I mean, all of our members are, so we have, again, I don't want to dive too deep into it, but we require a minimum of 2 paramedics a day. So if all of a sudden, and it rarely shakes out like this, but if we were looking at the shift and for some reason we only had 1 paramedic working, the overtime would be paramedic-only overtime. And, again, this is where we don't have the luxury. If no one takes the overtime, well, then someone's told to come to work, and they're forced to come. So there is no, there is no running short. You either volunteer or you're voluntold, to be there.
Chief, just on the point, so I'm not pleased that the training has to be cut, because certainly training impacts the quality and safety of the members. I don't like, I'm a big training guy. But just to clarify what everybody has said, what would be impacted by not staffing is the level of service. So you don't have anything in your collective bargaining agreement that says each group you'll run 2 ambulances and 2 engines, am I correct? It's based on your
No, there is nothing,
your internal operational
correct.
plan.
There's nothing in the collective bargaining agreement that drives minimum staffing or minimum pieces. But we do over 5,000 calls a year. I need 3 ambulances on the road every day. We're running 2. So we can't shut down an ambulance, and we have to have firefighters and fire trucks. So I could not operate with 6. If I chose today not to bring, 2 people in and we were running at 6, it would be a nightmare. We wouldn't be able to operate, in the course of a day.
I just wanted to clarify that, and Patrick's, we kept saying minimums. There is no contractual minimum. There is but there is a level of service in order to provide coverage for the town minimum.
Yeah.
That's really
The town has had a minimum of 8 firefighters on shift for 18 years. That's been the
Understand, too, and
minimum.
you'd be remiss in your role if you attempted to toy with that, so I totally get it.
Yeah, it would be, the amount of calls that we would not be able to respond to in a day by running at 6 would be impossible.
And I guess I would just ask, after your meeting and you discuss, maybe it's the next time we see you, just to discuss what other things, whether there's other discretionary time off you can cancel, that's, within the contract, whether there's administrative personnel that maybe, I think you have 2 folks in inspections now, maybe one has to go back for a short time and inspections will back up a little bit, just whatever creative ideas you have. And I'm sure you're going to go back to the table and figure out where this is unusual. And, this committee members have supported those increases in staffing over the last, I forget how many years I've been here now, 5 years. So we're moving forward. This is unfortunate, but I can see with that many people out, this number is going to continue coming back to us.
Yeah, now, the good news is that when I look at that list of the majority of the people that were out in that first 6 months, many of them are back. I do have a member in March that is going to have surgery that will put him out for 12 weeks. It's not job-related, but he requires a surgery that's going to put him out 12 weeks. We currently still have a vacancy that we're trying to fill. So that's, one group's running short already, right out of the gate. So we're trying to fill a vacancy, and I can tell you that it's becoming extremely difficult to recruit. I've had a job posting that many of you have probably seen on social media for a couple of weeks now. I do not have one viable candidate to hire for that replacement. So it's becoming extremely difficult to try to attract people to the profession as well. To your point about training, I'm a big training guy too. These things pain me, but knowing the deficit that we're in, I also in good conscience can't come here and ask for money without looking internally and making those tough decisions. That's my job, you know, and I'm hoping that if we come up with a long-term solution, and like I said, we do, I still do have a sum of money within the firefighter salary line that's going to put probably a couple of months, you know, worth of overtime back in here. I'm looking forward to hearing the town manager and the CFO's ideas tomorrow. You know, I'm hoping if things work out, maybe some of these things that I cut and some of the non-discretionary things, maybe we can bring those back the last couple of months, but you know, it pains me too, but I also in good faith can't come here and ask for money without being willing to make the cuts internally where I have it.
And I don't have to tell you, overtime is not sustainable. Everybody is eager initially, but after weeks upon weeks upon weeks of filling shifts, even the most hungry of employees eventually
Especially-
runs out of.
Especially when you're told to be there. You know, sometimes people don't take the overtime because they don't want it and they want the break, and then they're told to be there anyway, and that just compounds the problem because, you know.
Now they get tired and they're calling in sick, and now you're just, it spirals, so it's,
Yeah. Fortunately, we're very lucky. I was actually talking to HR about this today. I mean, we're very lucky. We actually use very little sick time in our place, which is good. You know, they suck it up. You know, they're not always happy about the forces, but they suck it up, and they're good about kind of not taking it out on that other end. But I remember being voluntold to be there, and I didn't like it either.
hopefully some resolution before we get to the summer months
Yep.
when, you know, people want to be away.
Yep.
Have plans to be away, so.
And like I said, in the 13 years that I've been the chief, I had one other Armageddon like this that was maybe back in like 17 or 18, you know, where I had like a dozen employees out or something like that. But the other thing that we didn't even really talk about is we've had three major COVID outbreaks in the department. So we had one in July, we had one in October, and one in December, where we had anywhere from 10 to 12 employees out during those three outbreaks. We're still transporting COVID patients almost on a daily basis. So COVID is still a thing in our building. We have, how many do we have out right now with COVID? So, and the problem is that when we have a COVID outbreak, it takes about 30 days for our schedule to reset.
No sooner do you reset it and you had another outbreak. it
Right.
sounds like.
So that's, you know, that's something we didn't even talk about, but that's a thing. You know, that's a thing for us that we're
Well, I think
still
it's
contending
important
with.
that you did bring it up, because I think it just, for everybody that's out there that got their vaccines and thinks that life is normal, it's still not normal, because we can see it still affects operations,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the industry of yours, and probably will throw in the police department, because they're exposed to it all as well.
The deputy and I were just out, what, a month ago? We were both out with COVID. Like, it's still a thing. We are transporting COVID patients, if not every day, every other day. We are still transporting COVID patients today.
Last thing I'll say.
Yep.
Just to reiterate that we shouldn't go understaffed. Ambulance receipts is a pretty sizable driver of the budget for the fire department too. And I'm assuming we would probably, if we were to cut an ambulance before we'd cut a fire truck. So we would see a subsequent offset in that cost too.
In that revenue.
And on that note, motion to approve the first transfer of $27,000, because we didn't take these as two.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take the first one, 27,000 to the overtime account. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And a motion to approve the second transfer of
Motion to
2,000.
take 2,000 from educational stipend account to the overtime account. I have a motion and a second from Patrick. All in favor? Okay.
Now I'll move that we take 3, 4, and 5 as one.
Okay, we have a motion to take the 3 from the professional development account as one. Have a second? Have a second from Steve down the end. All in favor? Okay, Chief, do you want to, just, is this all similar equipment? Just briefly, we've had.
Yeah, it's, These are just restoring, just putting basically a little bit of money into these accounts for the remainder of the fiscal year. The miscellaneous supplies account is for the administrative assistant and the principal clerk, staples, tape, office supply kind of thing. So that'll bring that account back up to $145. The equipment repair account, I know the next one you have is fleet, so Nick and the deputy will be up here talking about that. But this will bring us to, this will put $3,000 in our equipment repair account for the remainder of the fiscal year, and this will put, with this $1,100 transfer, we're sort of already in the red on that. This will put $1,063 in that account.
Okay, so let's read them off. From the professional development account, the amount of $100 into the miscellaneous supplies account. From professional development, $2,000 to equipment repair account. Reason given, expected repair expenses. The next one, $1,100 going to the new equipment account. Reason given, unexpected equipment replacement or purchases for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Motion to approve?
Motion?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you very much.
Okay, next one's from the DPW Highway. From the traffic paint account, amount requested $802.35, going to the highway training account. Reason given for, it's faded here, but for safety training, I believe is what it says. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Next one, also from traffic paint, amount requested $427.65 for training for stormwater, and this is safety training as well. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Okay. Fleet maintenance. Coming from the reserve fund, amount requested $25,000 going to fleet maintenance. Reason given to replenish the fleet motor vehicle repair account due to unanticipated budget shortfall. Gentlemen?
Before you guys start, I just want to ask one question quick. Is this a, like a department-specific reserve account, or is this the town-wide reserve account? Just because this is a different form than we usually see. Regular reserve? Okay.
Do we usually see them on a different format?
Reserve transfers usually come from, it doesn't matter, I just wanted to make sure.
No, just procedurally, I want to make sure we're good too. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are here tonight requesting $25,000 from the reserve account. When we initially did our budget at the beginning of the year, we had requested a budget increase of $75,000 for the fleet motor vehicle maintenance account in order to bring us in line with what we spent last year. We were approved for $50,000, but $25,000 was put in our budget and another $25,000 was put in the reserve account in the event that we might need it. So we are at a point right now where we are requesting that, but I do want to make the committee aware that we are going to be here in the future. It does appear that we're going to need much more than that. At this time, we've spent about $271,000 out of our budget of $310,000. It is difficult to project out motor vehicle repair expenses, but based off of sort of, I ran a number of projections and looking at potential high, potential low. We may need as much as $120,000, if not more, in this account to get through the year. We are talking internally about how we're going to get there. This is sort of the first step. But this is due to mainly large ticket items, large vehicles that have gone down, large repair costs in both the DPW and the fire department. So in addition to that budget shortfall, the highway department runs 2 street sweepers that recently both went down. I just got a quote to repair both of those. That would be an additional $130,000 to repair those. So we are right now sort of circling the wagons and figuring out how we're going to manage that. But my projections, not even looking at the street sweepers, would be potentially $120,000 to get through the rest of the year.
Cool.
Chief, do you have anything, is yours part of this, or are you here in support of?
I'm here in support with Nick, being that we work closely together.
We've also spent a large amount on our fleet. We've had some large repairs over the whole entire 6 months so far. So I'm just here to answer any questions related to it.
I have two questions. Are these repairs that we're doing in-house, or are these, like, is this line item for in-house repairs, or is this line item for things that we can't do in-house?
So this is for both. Anything we repair or send out comes out of the same account.
Okay.
In general, some of the bigger ticket items are repairs that we need to send out. Typically, you'll see labor costs that are equal to the parts costs. So we try to send things out as little as possible. So we do still save the town quite a bit of money having a fleet maintenance division. We are looking to increase staff for the fleet maintenance division. We're currently in the process of union negotiations to do sort of a reorganization in that, but that's been, it's been dragging. But we are still in that process. But yeah, that's, to answer your question, it's both. It's any repairs that are done.
And then the other question I have, and I feel like I've asked this every time that we have a fleet maintenance issue, so I apologize if it's getting tedious. I know that we purchased software to like track this stuff a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago now. And I'm just curious, like, how much data is in there now? Do we feel like our projections are getting more accurate? It seems like this is, obviously we wanted more money in the account this year. But even the more money wouldn't have gotten us anywhere close, it sounds like, where we're gonna need to be. So I'm just curious for like do we feel like that's a valuable piece of software? Is it helping? Is it?
Yeah, so the biggest value in the fleet maintenance software is going to be building up data over time and looking at vehicle life cycle costs. You know, we've got a year of data in there, and we are working on getting.
It's only been a year?
Yeah. And there certainly was a ramp-up period, and we are continuing to trying to put the correct data in there. Yeah. The problem with getting the data in the software, it's called Fleetio, is it requires time and effort to put that data in, and that's time that our mechanics are not spending fixing vehicles. So that it's been sort of a little bit of a slower ramp-up process than I would like, but we are continuing to get better data in that system. We're going to see.
Are there any clerical resources like in DPW?
Yes, yeah, and we do have a clerk in DPW who's specific to fleet, and I'm working with her to continue to increase her role in using the software. But the biggest benefit of this is going to be looking at vehicle life cycle costs over time and saying, okay, are these vehicles based off their age and how much we're starting to spend on them? Is it time to retire them? Should we be retiring vehicles sooner versus fixing them and keeping them longer? What makes more sense? As far as projecting out our budget year to year, it's not. There's certainly not enough data in there for that now, and I don't know. I'm sure it will add value, but it's not going to give us the accurate projections because we don't know when a vehicle's going to go down. Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely much more for capital planning. It's also used for workflow, getting in work requests from the different departments, different people, and tracking them internally.
Okay.
So yes, we are continuing to use that, but as far as planning out, I mean, it certainly can't tell us when something's going to break, when something's going to go down.
No, yeah.
That's one of those things. We're continuing to improve our processes. Cleaning vehicles better after storms, making sure, do we send them out to do more maintenance throughout the year that could potentially provide savings over time, stripping them down, painting frames and rails, that's an upfront cost, but may save money over time. We're looking at all that. Undercoating vehicles as we buy them. So we're still trying to find the best way to, squeeze as much out of our budget as we can. But it just happens to be sort of a perfect storm of costs are high, vehicles are more complex, they're more expensive to fix, they have more complex systems, and we've just happened to have an aging fleet, and vehicles are going down more. And we certainly have done our best to keep our fleet at a healthy age, but with vehicle lead times, the fire department can tell you the vehicle lead times, especially for their equipment, is obscene. It's difficult to kind of catch up on that.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I just had a question. The budget is not for labor internal, it's just for external parts and labor?
That is correct. Internal labor is out of the wages account.
Questions?
Motion to approve?
Motion to second. Motion to second, all in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Next one, a request from DPW Sewer Division, coming from the wages account, amount requested $2,800, going to heating fuel, reason given to cover costs for gas utilities service.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next one coming from the building maintenance account, amount requested $750, going to the water account, to cover costs for backflow testing. Any questions?
Motion approved.
Motion? Motion and a second, all in favor? Packagug Golf Course. This is from the ground seasonal account. Tell me that amount, is that? Amount requested $1,000, going to the travel meetings dues, to cover cost of, let me read off this one, I can't read off there.
License and travel renewals.
renewals. That's all right, I got the originals right there, thank you. Mine's just a faded cover. Any questions on this one?
Motion approved.
Motion? And a second. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Also from ground seasonal,
I move that we take the next 3 transfers all into the equipment line and appearing to be related to the purchase of golf carts as one.
you are good. Patrick, you're slipping over there, that's usually your job.
I was busy passing paperwork over to you.
Okay, we
Is
have a
there a
motion.
second for that motion?
We have a motion to take these next 1, 2, 3, go into the equipment account as one. Do I have a second on that? A motion and a second, we have that, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, take these as one. So this one, just somebody, Joanna, do you want to cover the golf carts tonight? I'll just read them, and then we'll ask for some guidance. So the one from ground seasonal, amount requested $9,000, going to equipment for purchase of new golf carts. One going from the concessions account, in the amount of $4,000 going to the equipment account, also for golf carts. And this one in an account titled contingency, the amount requested $7,000 going to the equipment account for golf carts. Ms. Paquin, would you like to cover the purchase of golf carts?
Sure. We're looking to purchase 6 golf carts. So over this season, the golf course has been very busy. And one of the biggest problems is, or one of the bigger complaints, is that there are not enough golf carts to go around. So we have, people waiting for golf carts or not going out. Just because they're not available, they're still out in play. So just to kind of give you a little bit of information on this year, in golf carts alone, we have over $176,000 in revenue.
Sorry, what was that one?
$176,000 in revenue for this calendar year,
How many carts do we have currently?
24. So we're looking to go up to 30.
Let's do quick math. This seems like a good investment.
It is. I mean, within a year, we would, we would easily pay the golf carts off. And obviously, we'd have happier customers, which is always a little bit easier on the staff too. So we have $18,000 currently in our equipment account. So, and we're looking to get to 38,000. So with all the transfers that we have in front of you, we could get to that 38,000 to purchase all 6.
I guess I was kind of surprised that we purchased golf carts. I guess if I had to render a guess, I would have thought we would have leased golf carts, but we actually own them and repair them and...
We own them. We're looking at, we have, in the past, we traded them in and we got a really good price for it, so we were able to benefit from that. So we don't, maybe we can talk a little bit more in our CIP conversation, but we do have a program to replace them on a regular basis.
But just the golf course is bringing in revenue and has an account, so how does that relate to these purchases? So does it come from the account established just for the golf course, or is this comes directly from that account?
The whole department is the, like, enterprise?
The enterprise fund.
Enterprise account, thank you.
So whatever,
Actually gotten that right.
whatever profits we make during the year, it goes into our retained earnings, and that's where the money comes from for our budget for next year.
Any other questions relative to? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess this is one other one. This one is coming from the contingency account from the golf course. Amount requested $5,000 going to the club manager account. Reason given, wage adjustment. Do you want to just discuss that adjustment?
Sure, so we have a clubhouse manager, and there's a little bit of an issue of the season as a calendar season for the golf course, but we go by a fiscal year. So over the course of this season, our clubhouse manager has taken on a lot of additional responsibilities that we really didn't know when we were budgeting for that position back last year. So we just wanted to make that adjustment to be more competitive with the job market out there.
So is it's an hourly
She's salary.
salary position? Okay. For a seasonal period of time?
Yep.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
Next one is coming from the reserve account from the town hall, is the department. It is reason for the town hall building maintenance. Amount requested $6,000, present balance in that account $3,375.10. The reason given is to provide and install 3 globe valves in the HVAC system at the town hall, and the amount looks like is $5,608.20. Any questions on that one?
Karen?
Karen?
I don't know, we should have taken that up while Ed was still here. Do you know anything more about it, Sharon, or?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Okay. We'll do some research for the next one, Steve, we'll have that. This one also coming from the reserve account, is been filed by the town, from the town manager. The name of the account going to manager professional service, amount requested $8,500, present balance in that account $2,303. Reason for the shortage in the account says to replenish the account necessary to perform a pre-demolition assessment of Chuck's Steakhouse property.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Unanimous? That is all. Don't have any minutes, correct? No minutes to approve. Do we know when we get together again?
Maybe before.
Chief said before town meeting, but we don't
Before the town.
have any outstanding things to vote on.
So potentially, if you had something overtime related, or, but before the meeting, we could,
Can get in touch with them.
okay. So nothing planned, potentially? Hopefully, we'll see everybody at town meeting?
I won't be there. If anything, I'll Zoom it, COVID season.
So if we're a town meeting member and finance committee, last time I didn't know if I should sit up front or not. so-
You're welcome to sit up front.
Okay.
Michael
I was
is.
like, but I'm a town meeting, so I'm not sure if those guys are town meeting too, or what, so.
Especially now, it's easy with the button. You don't have to worry about getting bypassed with the hand raise. You're right there, so.
If you need to use the mic, you could use your stuff on the table and go out to the front of the meeting.
Oh, good. Any other questions? Anything else for us, Karen? No?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Thank you, everybody.